Okay, welcome to Our Last Meal. This is a podcast where I'm going to talk with a guest around grief, loss, and all framed around meals and food that they've shared with someone meaningful in their life. Joining me today, I'm really excited, is my guest Christian PK Reeve. He's an actor, voice actor, podcaster, musician. I'm just going to say kind of a jack of all trades from Manchester, England.
That
Christian,
pretty
welcome
much,
to the podcast.
yeah, that covers it, man. Thank you.
Yeah, so when I got the intro from you, I saw how much you did, and I in comparison, I'm like, I need to step up my game in terms of the stuff I'm doing.
Nah, man. I mean, it's not about quantity; it's about quality. I have a lot of interest in life. I have a lot of things that I'm passionate about in life. There are some things in particular that I'm pushing hard. So, acting and podcasting in particular, and voice acting. These are three things that I'm really trying to push. But everything else, I've always been a musician. I love to create. I love to just be a creative person in general. Um, but I've never really thought that how much you do or how little you do or whatever should ever diminish your efforts. It's about like whatever you're passionate about in life, just do those things and chase those things, and don't worry about what everyone else is doing. Just worry about what you're doing and chase the happiness, man. That's it.
I agree with you. One of my favorite authors, Kurt Vonnegut, he had a quote to that effect, which is essentially, it was create something today, whether you dance, write a poem, draw a picture, no matter how poorly it is, you will at least put some art out into the world, and that's something worth doing. So I love that mindset.
Yeah.
So I got to ask though. So I know you do all these different things: the acting, the podcasting, the voice acting. So what got you into that? What was the thing that made you want to jump into all these different areas?
I'll try and give you a Cliff Notes version because the story is kind of. I'm a storyteller. I tell stories and I take a long time doing it. So I'll give you a Cliff Notes version. Basically, the story starts. I was a musician growing up, and I was really passionate about that. But I didn't have much confidence in myself. I was always very kind of self-deprecating and just surrounded by the wrong sort of people and such. And I was young. I barely lived. I didn't really know what real trials and tribulations were in life until I faced them. um, but it was hard growing up. It wasn't always easy with that, and it's something that I battle every day. This kind of self doubt. Sometimes some people call it imposter syndrome. Um, Something that I always battled. Anyway, I did music sort of a lot throughout my teens, and then around 17, 18, I got into music properly, and I started being in bands, and I was in a couple of metal bands for a few years. And I guess that whole experience kind of gave me what I would term as like an understanding that I loved creative things, but I didn't really explore anything else besides music. I just kind of figured, well, I'm passionate about music. I want to do music. So that's why kind of what I pursued for a while. And, it's the same old story. I was working crazy hours at some supermarket at the time and just generally not being very happy in life and being miserable, which is weird for someone 18, 19, 20, right? Um, and then, I decided to do something about it. So I went to university. And the reason that this is relevant is that during that time, just before I went to university, because I went at 21, so I sort of worked a bit, did music, and then came back to education. I gave up on music. And this is an important point I want to kind of add to this for anyone listening is that if anyone ever tells you to kind of give up on your dreams or the things that are connected to you, the things that make you you, do not listen. Never listen to that. It's fine if people give you advice, take it on board, but don't give up on your dreams and your hopes because sooner or later, life is going to throw you back in that position where you need to be, where you're pursuing these things. And this is what happened. I gave up on my dreams. I went to university. I did all that stuff. I lived abroad for a few years. I sat down once I got into my first proper job in this new field, in marketing it was. And the job was great for 6 or 7 months. I was genuinely happy. And then one point I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I'm not happy. But I don't know why I'm not happy. I mean, this is not, I'm not stacking shelves anymore. I'm not doing crazy 60, 70-hour weeks in hospitality anymore. So what do I have to complain about? But I knew there was something missing. And then this is in 2019, early 2019. Someone in the office comes up to me, and I was living in Europe, and this guy comes up to me and goes, "There's a short film that these people are doing. They're students, and I know them. And one of them is looking for a British guy from London to play the part of like whoever." And I just laughed, and I was like, "That's hilarious. Okay, fine, let's do it." I'd never acted before, knew nothing about it. I just figured it would be a small bit part, and then you move on, right? But I get the script. Turns out I'm the lead, so I've got to like learn this whole script, and it's like 3 or 4 weeks of filming, and I'm like, oh sugar. So I go and do it, and I love it. When I say I love it, I mean like you get these moments in life sometimes where you do something for the first time and it just clicks, and you're like, oh my god, this feels natural. This feels
Yeah.
like yeah, like it's not. You're not, because normally when you do something for the first time, you suck because that's normal. You don't know how to do it. But I did this for the first time and it just came very naturally. And I was like, ooh. And I just kept doing it and kept doing it. And then I decided to, because a lot of the time when you pursue one thing in life, you end up pursuing other things connected to it because your mind kind
Yeah.
of opens up. And this is what happened to me. It was like, okay, well, if I'm doing this, why don't I start up that YouTube channel that I'd always said I would and never had any ideas for? So I did that. And I was like, oh, well, I want to do a podcast. So why don't I just do a podcast? And I want to start writing music again. So why don't I do that? Fast forward to now. That's basically what I've been trying to do for the last 3 years. And I guess I've kind of realized finally what I want to do with my life. So as I mentioned before, I want to be an actor, a voice actor. And I'm kind of open to anything else, to be honest. Obviously, as you know, I'm pushing my own podcast as well. But a lot of it is my mind is kind of split as far as my life, and this is the final thing I'll say is that because I know I do talk a lot. I apologize. Part of me
No,
is
no worries.
pursuing part of me is pursuing these things because I love them and it's my passion and it's what I want to do with my life. And the other part of me is kind of very conscious of time, and it kind of ties with
Yeah.
our theme actually that we're talking about today. Loss. I've had friends who've passed away very, very young before their time, some naturally, some because of their own doing. And
Yeah.
that stuff tends to kind of give you a sense of perspective, and it starts to make you question your own life. And it's not, I know sometimes it's a cliche, like you're at a funeral and you're like, oh, I'm start thinking about my life, and then you do nothing. Like when you start seeing it happen quite a few times, or sometimes when you see someone pass away before their time, and they're robbed of their time. Like, for instance, there was someone, a family friend who I'd worked with when I was younger, who passed away recently as a mother with
Mm.
kids and a husband. And I just, I got upset and I also got angry. I was like, why is life like this? That people get taken away from us, and the people in their lives, they get robbed of what they deserve, you know? And I guess
Yeah.
life is not supposed to be fair. Life is supposed to just be a journey with experiences, and all you can really do is your best and just hope it's enough.
It's interesting you say that. I mean, that idea that life isn't fair, that it is a journey. It's true, but it seems like even as you get older, you realize this. I'm a father. I've got a 5-year-old. It's not easy to explain to a 5-year-old that things aren't always fair. That
Mm,
you're not going to get, just because one of your friends got something doesn't mean that you get that. At the same time, I'm trying to explain that to her. I'm also learning it myself because you're right. I mean, I'm 35 and I see friends that I went to high school with, that I grew up with, that have passed, whether it was through, like you said, through natural means, through unnatural means, and it isn't fair to think that these people who they still had so much ahead of them, they're gone. And you had mentioned the other thing about it can kind of come off as cliche, but I think there is a lot of sincerity sometimes in cliche. They're cliches for a reason. They
yeah,
come from somewhere. But that idea
I
of
truly,
just seeing this and go ahead.
I truly believe that all of them are true. They're different perspectives because us as human beings, we all live our
Of
lives in
course.
different ways. But most of them are, yeah, factual. And when it comes to loss, I mean, like I just turned 29 yesterday, and in the
Happy
moments
birthday.
between, thank you, in the moments in between us kind of enjoying ourselves, I would just sit there and think to myself, like, I can't believe I've made it this far, and I feel so lucky,
Yeah.
and I truly feel like every day is like a gift and every day is an opportunity, and I try to make the most of it. I try to take care of myself more. I try to, like little things, like every time I speak to someone that I care about, I tell them that I love them. Even if it's weird, even if I don't always tell them that I love them, I just make sure now always tell them that I love them, make them know that I care about them, because tomorrow is not promised. It really isn't, and you just have to kind of
Right.
make the most of the times you have, both with people and also I think in your own life as well, in the things that you're passionate about. Like, again, cliche, but be in the moment. That's what that means. The past is done, it's dead, it's not gonna, it can't hurt you. And the future, well, the future doesn't exist. It's whatever you make it. It can be anything. It's all constantly changing and molding according to your um choices and decisions, but sometimes not as well. Sometimes life throws curveballs at you and you just kind of have to, like, I'll give you an example. This week has been one of those everything that can go wrong has gone wrong weeks, right? And at first I was kind of getting a bit irritated, then I kind of laughed and I was like, well, of course this is happening. If this is going wrong, all of this stuff must go wrong too. I'll give you another example just to tap onto this. So I just recently rejoined the gym after like 2 years. And in my first session, because everything is different now, it's all QR codes, and like it's a 24-hour gym with no staff, and I sound like a boomer, like going like, "Oh, well, back in my day, it was," but no, like I prefer it when there is a receptionist and you can walk in and be like, "Hello," and like, I like that. Give me some humans. I don't like when you come in
The personal
to this.
touch.
That's the thing. When you come into this place, it's got these kind of like booths that the only way I can describe is it's like being at airport security. And while you're in that booth, technically, for a few seconds, you are trapped. So, I mean, God forbid if you're claustrophobic. I mean, but so that happened. I'm trying to get in there, and my code is not working. So I'm just kind of stood there looking like an idiot while all the people are coming and going, looking at me like, "Huh? What's wrong with that guy?" And then I finally get in. It's one of the staff lets me in, and she says that she thinks that I've been registered to the wrong gym, which is why the code doesn't work. And then I realize I am registered to the wrong gym, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So then, I'm kind of flustered. I get changed. I kind of just throw my stuff around. I forget to warm up. So I'm already off to a bad start. And then at one point, as I'm doing chest press, I look down and there's a massive rip where my genitals are, and I'm just looking at it like, like it couldn't be anywhere that you could conceal it. It has to be right there on display for the world to see. And and then so I decide to leave, and leaving. Oh my god!
Yeah, I think at
Same
that point
thing.
the workout's over.
Well, yeah, I mean, I got about 45 minutes. Today I went, and today was great, so I'm back to business. But yeah,
Yeah.
and then I I basically went back, got changed, and of course I can't get out, because if I couldn't get in with the code, I can't get out with the code. And I keep pressing the OK button. There's no one there. There's no one there. I look up to the right, and there's like, sometimes you get like CCTV, but they show the screen so you can see yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at myself, and I'm like, oh, look at this sad, pathetic guy. Like, this is depressing, man. Like, what is this? And she finally comes and lets me out, and I feel like a I feel like a kid who's just been forgotten about after detention, and saying like, "Has your mum come to get you?" It's like, ugh. But here's the thing: if
Well,
this had been 5 or 6 years ago, I would have had a complete meltdown. But because I'm older and wiser, and I look at things differently, I'm just like, okay, move on.
But That's the thing. Perspective, I think, is really important. So you have that perspective and that the benefit of being a little bit older, like you said, a little bit wiser. So you understand that, hey, if this is the worst thing that happens to me all day, it's probably not that bad. Um, I will say this.
Yeah.
So while you were saying that, one thing that stood out to me, it could be worse. You could have been going to the gym for years. You could have been huge and just stuck in this little tube and not even being able to turn around. I just picture this really large, muscular guy just stuck with his arms down by his side and he
It's
can't
like,
get out.
you ever seen Spinal Tap? You ever seen the movie Spinal
So
Tap?
I'm ashamed of this. I'm aware of Spinal Tap. I've never seen it. It's not a
Oh,
proud thing for me.
there's a okay. Go see it. It's an amazing movie. It's like if you've ever been a musician, you'll relate to everything in the movie. It's absolutely hilarious. It's kind of like a mockumentary style thing, but it is brilliant. But there's a scene where like they're all on stage, and they've got like these kind of, I don't know what to call it, like big icicle booth things that are supposed to open out, right? So all of the rest of the band come out of their pods. They're pods. That's what they are. So they come out of their pods and they play
Yeah.
like their gig, right? And the bassist is stuck in his pod trying to play the bass like this, and then there's like a roadie running at the bottom trying to like open it up, and he can't open it up. And then what happens is right at the end, as they're going back into the pods, he gets out of his pod. And then he realizes, runs back in, and he gets his arm caught in it as the pod closes. It's like, ah! It just reminds me of that.
Okay, I guess so that's on the list for me for an action item out of this. And I'm sorry, that's the corporate speak that comes out to me. I have a corporate day job, so things will sometimes come out of me that I don't intend to. I'll tell my wife sometimes we need to circle back on things. I'll
Oh
tell my daughters we need to
no!
sit down and have a performance review. Yeah, I'm not proud of it. I'm not proud of it, but that's something I'm gonna have to do. That's going on my to-do list is watching Spinal Tap.
Imagine going to your 5-year-old daughter. Listen, we need to have a performance review. Earlier in the day, when you spilt the milk on the table, that was unacceptable. You have to dock your pay.
I'll tell you, there have been times I've thought about it. The idea of like these annual performance appraisals, I mean, I don't see why we couldn't bring that into, talking with our kids. Look, I mean, the grades have improved from last quarter, but I'm looking at the trends, and I'm not really excited about what I'm seeing here. I'm expecting
let's
of
brainstorm
ROI,
some ideas for how you can improve your behavior. Blue sky thinking, everybody. Blue sky thinking.
Oh god, I'm taking the day off, and I'm still hearing things like blue sky thinking. Beautiful.
Oh, I know how you feel.
I will tell you though. So, just that idea, just getting back in the gym. That's one of the things that's on the to-do list for me because it's long overdue. So I've got nothing but respect for you jumping back into it. I feel bad for you though that you said you skipped the warm up and went straight into the workout.
It's all right.
I can only imagine
It didn't hurt too much. It was okay. Because I've been active in the past year or so. Like I was doing volunteering for about a year and a half, and so I did it during the pandemic, and then sort of coming out of it.
Wonderful.
And I ended it the beginning of this year actually, and a lot of it was like physical lifting of like furniture, so like couches and washing machines, and massive cupboards and stuff up flights of stairs. It was like really difficult, and it was really heavy. A lot of it was really heavy, and we probably shouldn't have been lifting it, but we were all fairly strong guys, so it was okay. But I think all of that meant that when I did go back to the gym, I didn't feel it. Like it wasn't. Do you know? It's like if I'd have not done any kind of exercise or physical stuff at all in the last 2 years, then you're right. I would have just been like, but I was okay. I was okay. It was all right.
Well, just I hate to say this, but just as a heads up, when you hit your 30s, it comes for you pretty hard. I joked when I turned 30 that I was going to start falling apart, and literally the week I turned 30, I woke up one morning with my neck so stiff I couldn't even turn it. It was just this big cosmic joke that I couldn't even sleep anymore without injuring myself.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think I've already had that for the last 5 or so years. I mean, I started getting white hair at like 24, 25, and I do the whole old man kind of like, and I mean, I exaggerate it because why not? Like, have fun with it, right?
Well,
but I do. It's like,
yeah,
you got to make everyone within a 5-mile radius know that. It was like you come back from work and you're like, sit down, which that translates to get me a cup of tea.
I can't sit down or stand up without having to make some kind of groan. Yeah, I'm right there with you. You know, and I will say that at least you've got the benefit of your hair going gray or white. You can color that. I'm losing mine, so there's not a whole. I can't paint something on there to fill in the gaps.
Bro, Bruce Willis.
I've always refused
Willis.
to be the. Well, I shave it. So I've always said that I wasn't going to try the comb over. I also wasn't going to go the Hulk Hogan route of the skullet. So I just shave it and we just live with it.
I've never understood that one. See, I understand men getting a bit like apprehensive about going fully bald. I get it. It's not easy, but come on, man. That skullet thing, like where it's like I saw some guy the other day that had that. And he had like a tiny hair here and nothing here, and I'm like, bro, just cut it. You got the right. Because here's the thing: most guys, pretty much every guy I've seen that is looking like he's balding, has the perfect head shape for it. Like you got the right head shape for it, so it's fine. Like it's embrace it, man. And then you can do some Heisenberg stuff with it. You can just go like crazy beard, look like a madman. Like I would totally do that if I was going bald. I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna just scare the living daylights out of people.
Well, see that's where I am lucky is that even going bald, I can grow a good beard, so it makes up for it. So I'm like, okay, I've got hair. It's just not where I would like it, where most people would like it. It's on my face. It's close enough.
It's strange.
Even in the 80s. Yeah, I've heard it's genetic. I don't know. I've
always just found it weird. Nature. Isn't it weird how here it can be light, but then here it just grows like. I don't understand that.
It's nature playing a cruel joke. That's the only thing I can think of.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't think like baldness is a bad thing. I've never understood that. Like people see it as like a really bad thing. Like, oh, you're losing your masculinity, or you're losing your vigor, or something. It's just like, who cares? It looks cool. Like, I don't know. It's. I mean, if we all look the same, that would be problematic.
Oh, that'd be horrible. But I think a lot of it's vanity, and it's that thing of youth. It's that you have men that don't want to they don't want to lose their youth. I started losing mine probably in like my early to mid 20s. Whenever I started dating my wife, she a couple months in, she's like, "Why don't you just try shaving it?" Yeah. Never going back. Never looked back. I'm with you. I would encourage any man who's losing it, just shave it. Just try it out.
That's the thing.
If you got a lumpy head, that's character.
That right there tells you everything you need to know, because ladies like a bald man. They like a bald man.
There you
go. I hear it all the time. Yeah, it's there's different. That's the thing. There's different types of guys. It's like not every girl will go after a guy who's big and muscly. Like dad bods is a thing now. It's his preference.
Yes, and I'm incredibly happy about that.
Hey.
Yeah, I told my wife the other day that I was incredibly happy that dad bods are in now. I don't know how long that's going to be a thing, but it's I've got a little bit of time to be attractive, And also, I don't like the term dad bod. It's not dad bod. It's father figure. That's what I prefer.
Hey, that's brilliant. I love that. I'm stealing that.
By all means. All right, well, Christian, hey, I appreciate you telling us more about yourself and your background. So what I want to do now, I want to shift a little bit and go back to that corporate lingo. Let's shift gears a little bit. Tell us, the whole point of the podcast is we're talking about people that we've lost, food that we shared with them, meals that we shared with them. So could you just start off with, who are we talking about today?
So we're going to talk about my step-grandfather, who I met through my dad's wife, my stepmom, so it's her father. And it's interesting as well, because before this show I actually reached out to her to ask her permission if it would be okay to talk about him, and she of course said yes, and was really, I think she was touched that I cared enough to want to talk about it and talk about him. And it's quite fresh. I mean, he passed away. I was at university, so I think 2015. I was first year. I remember it well. It was 2015,
Yeah.
I was living in halls. I was with my then ex-girlfriend, and I just remember getting a call, I think from my dad, and he just said, "Hey, he's passed away," and I was just like really, it hit me, that one. Like I already knew that things weren't looking good. We all did. The last time I saw him, he was in bad shape, and it was a situation where, like the last time I saw him, I think I was 19, 20, and when you see a person who is passing away and knows they're passing away, it's difficult to know what to say. And I would try and be upbeat and say positive things, but
Yeah.
he would kind of shut them down, not in a mean way, but he was kind of like illustrating that, hey, I'm not gonna make it, kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
and he wasn't his usual self, because he was the sort of guy that was very. He had this laugh, and we always like. I saw my family recently, and we spoke about it, and I love his life's like. And the funny thing is, all his children have the same laugh. So my stepmom and her brothers, they all have that laugh. It's like a family laugh. I don't know. And his one was the best. He's like, and I always think about that when I think about him. And he basically he wasn't being like his normal self. And yeah,
Yeah.
so then I got the call, and yeah, yeah, he'd passed away, and I had to go to the funeral, and it was. It was a funeral. It was really, really sad. Um,
Yeah.
I think, I won't go into too much detail about that, but what I will say is that he was the whole reason I wanted to talk about this man is that he and that whole family are like the perfect example of what a family should be. Like, they're very close knit, tight knit. They love spending time with each other. And I would constantly go over to his and see all of them together, and have food together and share experiences together. Like, it was just fun and enjoyable to be in their presence and be there. Now, I met them when I was 7 or 8 years old. And I remember that they were very keen to kind of call me grandson, and I didn't really feel comfortable with that. And I'd always call them by their names, and I always kind of felt bad about that, because they were like a really good grandma and granddad. I just never, you know how it is, like you pick a thing and then you just stick to it. Like, and I had a lot going on in my own life as far as parenting and everything. So it was tricky for me, but I adored them. I really did, and I still do, the grandma and the family and everything. Um, but the reason why I'm saying this is that I would often go around there either to be babysat, or to have like Sunday dinner, or sometimes I stayed there. But every time I went there, I remember when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, and I think in my early 20s, it was always really enjoyable. I always really looked forward to it. Like, I remember spending like Christmases there. Boxing Day, there was like Boxing Day parties we used to do, and I think I did New Year's once. Just the whole experience, everyone being together. Like, there was so many good times and moments, and it's kind of a bittersweet thing. And it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, about how life things change, and you look back and you realize just how special those moments were.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're right when you say bittersweet. Because it's when you think about it, I don't know if you have this feeling of, okay, feeling lucky to have had those memories, and thankful for those good times. But it's that thing of, does that make it harder? Does it make it easier? And honestly, I say this as somebody who's been trying to, and it comes down to the whole reason I even want to have these conversations is, this is something that even as a almost middle aged man, I still struggle with myself and still think about.
I mean, sorry, what is the question again? I was kind of caught up in the emotion for a second.
Honestly, I don't know that there was a question. It's just more an observation. I think what you said though was really true though, about just how it is bittersweet. Um,
Yeah.
Just
I
having
mean,
having had those times.
that's the thing. Like, I was speaking to my stepmom the other day. I went to see my family, and we spoke about him. We spoke about her dad, and I can tell.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's not. She's more than happy to talk about him, like they all are, obviously, because he was such a great guy, and we all loved him very dearly, and we had some very good times. But it's still very fresh in memory, and this is why I asked her permission if I could speak about him, because as much as I think that there's so much I want to say, and like, I want to celebrate him. Um,
of
and I
course.
think every time that you talk about someone that's passed away, you by remembering them, you are celebrating them, and you live in. I often think about when I've had dark times in my life, and I've maybe considered things, and the things that stopped me from doing that was the people I would leave behind, and also I started thinking about the people that passed away, both young and old. Like, maybe I should live my life to its fullest, kind of as tribute to them, because some of them didn't
Yeah,
get to live longer, and they would have loved to have lived longer. Some of them, took their lives, and you know, maybe they maybe they would have regretted it. I don't know. I mean, it's a hard thing when that goes through someone's mind. I think what it's all kind of taught me, like, I've always kind of considered myself a decent person, a nice person. I've been told that I'm a nice person and stuff, but I can say that I haven't always been nice to people. I've made mistakes, as we all have. I've been spiteful. I've been cruel in some cases. Um, but I recognized and I remembered that in those moments when I had, the reason why I did was because I was suffering, because I was not happy in life about something, and I kind of blamed the world for that. And so when all of these people started passing away, and I started learning my own life lessons in general, I started making more of a conscious effort to just be nicer to everyone, like strangers and friends and family, and putting aside things, even if, I've had arguments with friends and family. Like, who cares, man? Like, if it's a minor thing, just let it go. Don't don't carry baggage. Don't carry hatred in your heart. Like, try to remove that, eliminate that, because life is short. That's the thing. Like, you don't know how long you've got with
yeah,
someone, and you want to have good memories. And I can honestly say I have only good memories of my step granddad. Like, he was such a great guy, and I'm very inspired by his ability to get a family together to have like Sunday dinner regularly. Because, I mean, other than being an amazing cook, and we'll get into that, um, I think the biggest reason why people wanted to be there is that it was a family setting. We have so many family friends that would come and still are connected to the family, that would come all the time, and he would make them welcome. And I think part of that was because he'd worked as a pub owner in his younger years, so he's very used to running an establishment that had lots of people. Where, because you go to like a bar or a pub regularly, like you kind of feel like it's part of you, and that the people make you feel
yeah,
welcome, and it's almost like I mean, it used to be called a public house, didn't it? People would stay there, and so I think that's why he was able to cultivate a sort of a house, a loving space where everybody felt welcome. Like, and it didn't matter what was going on in your life. Like, sometimes people would come there and they're having a bad time, and he would even let them stay for a while. Like, he was all about family, and he taught that to his kids, and now they're, some of them are going off and having families and such, and they're all really, really good people. And it's directly because of him, and my step grandma as well, and the work they put in to do that. Because I think it's a conscious thing, being nice, making people feel comfortable, making people feel welcome. I'm sure everyone listening to this has been in a situation where you see people in a room, maybe you're in a group of friends, and you see someone that's quiet, they're a bit withdrawn. you can be the one to include them. You can be the one to make them feel comfortable. They don't have to sit there. They don't have to
Agreed.
be ignored. You can make them feel welcome and included. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter if you feel introverted or you're extrovert. Like, everybody wants to feel included and that they're part of something. And I think that's what he did. He made everyone feel part of something and feel included and feel special.
I mean, I think that's incredible. I mean, just not that it wasn't just family that would come over and eat, but the fact you said too, he would just invite everyone. I mean, that it was so welcoming. And I do wonder too if that background, running a pub, I mean, if that translated to, that idea of, okay, our home is where we feed people, where we nourish them food, but where we make them feel comfortable, we make them feel welcome.
Well, it's like,
I love the fact that that's something that he encouraged everyone else to do as well, and it still lives on through him.
yeah, I mean, like, I think about my other family as well, like, because I've got like three sets of four sets of grandparents, I think, three or four. I don't know, I lose count. And they're all very welcoming and hospitable and everything. But there was something about, I think about the fact that he kind of included everyone, like family, friends too, and because sometimes people would be like, "Oh, we only keep it in the family," or they're not
Yeah.
so, you know, inclined to let others come in. And I understand that, because you have to be careful letting new people into because family is sacred. Like, it's not. I know not everyone has a positive relationship with their family. I do understand that. But I think for the most part, I've understood, especially in later years, I've realized kind of the sanctity, the safety of family. Like, for instance, when I saw my family recently, I was just there sitting on the couch with them, and I was just enjoying that, just being with them. Sitting and watching TV with one of my brothers, watching one of my brothers play football, talking to my stepmom, talking to my dad, talking to my mum, talking to my other stepdad. Stepmom, stepdad. I mean, I'm losing count. Both parents, all my parents.
Yeah.
And then the brilliant. I feel I count myself very lucky, because I was able to and still have several sets of parents and grandparents, and they're all different. And I learned different things from them, and I learned a lot from my step granddad. I think I learned that, and I'm reiterating a little bit what I said before, but the importance of family and coming together and making people feel welcome and special, and thoughtfulness as well.
Yeah.
There
Talk
was
to me
there
a
was a
little
lot
bit more
of
about that.
thoughtfulness. Okay. Well, when I first had a problem with calling them, step granddad, step grandmother, and all that, I remember my dad sitting me down and saying, like, "Hey, we don't do step, we do this, that," and I understood, and I still to this day feel bad. I wish I'd just called them grandma and granddad from day one. But again, I was a bit older. I was about 7 or 8, and had my own stuff going on. I think I was, maybe a bit older than that,
Yeah.
actually. I just didn't feel comfortable. But they always made me feel comfortable, and they never held that against me either, and they still don't. And I think through that, I did begin to understand that titles don't really mean anything. It's about how you choose to treat people. Just because you're related to someone, or just because you're connected with someone, that doesn't mean that they deserve you, and vice versa. Like, you have to earn that. And he always made everyone feel special and included and part of something. And I never felt uncomfortable there, not once. I always felt comfortable. I always felt loved. I always enjoyed it. I always had a good time. I remember asking to stay there, I think, in some cases when I was younger. And then there were little things as well. Like, for instance, I mentioned to you in the preamble, I said, remind me about the Capri Sun story. So here is the Capri Sun story. It's not really a big story, but it'll illustrate like a little sweet granddad and grandson thing. So, do you have Capri Suns in America, or is it just, I don't know? Is it a
I
British
gave my
thing?
daughter one this morning, so yeah,
Oh, okay.
they're super popular.
All right. Sorry, I don't know. I'm ignorant to that. Um,
No, it's okay.
I always had them. I remember in packed lunches as a kid, and I always loved them. And then he was like, "Do you want an ice lolly?" And I was like, "Sure." And he goes, "Right, what I'm going to do is we'll take this Capri Sun and we'll put it into the freezer and wait about 30 minutes or however long it was, and you can get it back as a lolly." And that kind of, like, my 8-year-old brain, it just blew my mind. I was like, "What do you mean?" And then he brought it out, maybe, and I'd forgotten about it after playing for like 30, 40 minutes. And he goes, "Here you go." And I was like, "Oh my God." And then he always kept them in there after that. So there was always Capri Suns there for me to have. And I think he did that especially for me. Maybe other kids as well that stayed there. But I think at the time I was the only kid, I think, going there. And that goes back to the kind of thoughtfulness thing, you know. He just knew what people liked, and he would make sure that those things were there and stuff. Like, I mean, we're talking about food. Obviously, it's our last meal, right? Let's talk about the food. So he used to make
Yeah.
this, and it's like a family recipe sort of thing. He used to make this cauliflower cheese sauce, and I don't know what he put in it, but my God, it was the best cauliflower cheese sauce I've ever had in my life. And you know what? Like, I remember saying to my stepmom, because she laughed and said, like, to be honest, like, what, other than wanting to see my family and everything, I just like to go there every Sunday, and I made sure I was there every Sunday so that I could get a roast meal because it was so damn good. I mean,
All
it's
right,
like,
okay. I'm gonna ask, what is all right? So, what is a cauliflower cheese sauce? I saw that whenever we were communicating. Is it just cauliflower and cheese sauce? I'm shifting gears. I'm sorry. I saw that.
oh,
I
that's
love
fine.
cauliflower. I love cheese. I'm a big fan of sauces as a concept. So this is up my alley.
I don't know exactly what's in it. I mean, obviously cauliflower and obviously some sort of cheese mix. I think I want to say maybe garlic. I'd have to ask my stepmom, to be honest. I don't know what. Maybe my step grandma would know. I don't. I don't know. I don't know what he put in it, but I would always. Okay, this is something I want to say as well, just in terms of like how he arranged everything, how they would arrange it. So I was always used to having
Yeah.
dinner just kind of like in a standard, like, okay, dinner is what is on your plate. That's dinner, right? You get
Same.
served to.
Same.
So I'd never really had like a buffet style deal, and that was introduced to me by going to their house. And because I think it made sense because there was such a big family, he had to prepare like a lot of food. So you had like all these different bowls and plates of all this different stuff, and like I used to, oh my God, because I love food. Uh, and I would go away so happy. I'd have so much food. I'd keep eating. He was always saying like, "Oh, you can have more if you want," and I'm like, "I don't think I should." So he was always very keen to make sure you were fed well and eaten well, and I'm like, "Oh, thank you, but I should stop because I won't be
Well, I was
able
gonna
to
say,
stop myself.
was it a you shouldn't or you can't? That's the thing.
I shouldn't." um, yeah. No, I mean the food was wonderful. I mean, it was typically like standard Sunday roast, which is obviously staple here in the UK. Um,
Yeah.
so it was a combination of two things. It was that kind of family vibe of a Sunday, and we would talk. There's no phones. There's no, we had phones, but like no one really was sitting there on their phone. It wasn't until my brothers started being born and stuff that they obviously, because they're that generation, right? But I
Yeah.
always just used to, and we still have this kind of talking at the dinner table, which I love. That's beautiful. That's special. That's something you got to carry in any family. It's so wonderful to be able to do that, and we always did that around his house. And I was young. I was a sort of kid that I was always wanting to hang out with older people, and I was kind of years ahead of my age, I suppose. I was always forward. I always wanted to be around the adults. I was always interested in what the adults were talking about and saying. And I'd sit there 8,
Yeah.
9, 10 as I got older, and then obviously as I became a teenager, I was able to sort of engage more in conversation. And And they always made me feel included. I never felt like, oh, he's just a child, or oh, like they never dismissed me. It was always very like everyone is welcome and enjoy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's something about and this is where the idea for this podcast came in, and why this interests me. I mean, the food is a big part of it, but the food is not just the taste. Like obviously, you've got these memories of this really delicious food. It's more than that though. It's that actual act of eating with somebody. It's the breaking bread. It's what that entails. It's sitting around the table. It's talking, and it's the memories you get from that.
You know, something my dad said to me the other day kind of stands out to me with this conversation. He said, because me and my dad are very spiritual, we believe in like some kind of out there stuff, and he said something interesting which I want to share here. He basically said that whenever your food is prepared by someone else, you have to be very careful because energy is everywhere, right? So if, for example, your food is prepared by someone who, I don't know, negative energy, or they didn't, they're very unhappy or whatever, that kind of goes into the food, so to speak. So bear with me. I know this is out there. But when he started saying that, it kind of made sense. Like sometimes you hear that expression, made with love. The food was made with love.
Yeah.
I believe in that concept. And I think that's why the food was so good at their house, because it was always made with love. And, he was happy to do it. And like, for instance, he had, just on a side note, he was big into gardening and he loved that garden so much. And he was always there cutting it, shaping it, like, everything he did with love and care. And that was his personality. And it just translates into everything. And it's no wonder that his kids are such wonderful, good, decent human beings, because that's what he instilled in them. And he led by example, like he, right up into his final days, he was always passionate and loving and cared, and his heart was in the right place. And
Yeah.
I suppose it's all these years later now I'm really able to like fully appreciate that. And I did appreciate it at the time, but as you get older and you start to look at things from a different perspective and with different eyes, and you get wiser, I start to look at it like, wow, like he really was a special person, and we were very lucky to have him in our lives. And I suppose I look at it like, what can I learn and take away from this? How can I use these experiences to better myself and maybe to spread that to others? And that's why I wanted to appear on the show. Like when you reached out to me, I thought, you know what, it would be good to talk about him, because I think that it's a story that should be shared, because it's a story of love and
Yeah.
and being and caring. And yeah, food when it's at its best has all of those things tied into it. So there it is.
Well, that's the goal. Was I want this to be a way to, you the way you kind of mention it is, as you do get older, as you learn more, as you get more perspective, I think you can look back on your childhood. You can appreciate certain things. Just life experience allows you to do that. But I want this to be a way to honor people who mattered, to meant something to people. And food, it's like I think you hit the nail on the head. Food's just one way to do that. It's that concept of being made with love. There's something so much. There's something to that that's just so important.
There's this picture of him in my mum and stepmom's house. Um, it's like a black and white style photo, but like because he used to, in his later years, he wore these kind of like I don't know what they are, like suspenders, breeches, like braces, I think they're called. The older gentlemen like to wear.
Yeah.
And they're like highlighted in red. And I remember he always used to wear them, and I always like I love that. I think they're really cool. Like I want to wear them. They're really cool. And it's a wonderful shot of just him sitting in his garden where the place that he loved, and he's leaning over and he's got that smile, and I can hear that laugh in my head, like,
Yeah.
and I miss him, man. I miss him.
I know. I know that these aren't easy conversations, but you think about it the way you talk about him today. I mean, you miss him, but he's clearly he's still with you. Someone like
Yeah, I
that
mean,
doesn't leave.
the amazing thing was as well is like we weren't like close, like in the sense that like I didn't see him all the time. Like obviously, if my stepmom were here or someone else from the family, you know, you get much more of a like a deeper like it would be a lot more emotional. Like, but for a person that I didn't always like, I'd see them like maybe a couple times every month, and then obviously as I got older, that'd be less and less, and yet still he was able to make this impression on me and make me feel that way. You know, like I have a close friend, for instance, that I met at university, and we're terrible at keeping in touch. Right, we're awful, but we always
Yeah,
reconnect, and whenever we do, it's like no time has passed. It doesn't matter, and like that's the sign of a real true friendship. And it was the same with my step granddad. It was like it doesn't matter how long it's been. You know, I would just be there in the moment with him, and it was enjoyable and nice and fun. And I remember like even at Christmases we would just you know, like 'cause I'd normally go there on a Boxing Day or something, and I always used to love. Oh my god, I used to adore this. So we would basically sit there and play like Trivial Pursuit or something, and just
yeah,
eat snacks and just have fun and just joke and take the mick out of each other, and like I loved that. I loved that interaction. I still love that. You know, I mean, in my older age, I've become more reclusive. I suppose I appreciate my own space and time and stuff. But I love to be around people when it's like that. When you have those experiences, I really make the most of it. Like when I saw my mum and my dad's families this last week or wherever it was, I was there for like a week and a half, and I hadn't seen them in like a year, and I just made sure to be there at all times. You know, I barely looked at my phone, if at all. You know, and I was just there chatting or sitting with them and watching something or whatever. You know, like I remember one of my
yeah.
brothers. We sat there watching stuff together, and I was just amazed at how intelligent. He's only 13, and he was so intelligent, and he wanted to be there as much as I did. You know, and I found that amazing for like a 13-year-old who's, there's so many more interesting things he could be doing than rather than sitting and talking with his boring older brother. But yeah, he seemed to love it and was just really sweet and thoughtful and nice. And he comes from that same family. You know what I mean? That same lineage.
Yeah,
It's there. It's
there's
yeah,
something in the genes.
yeah. He lives on. Lives on. Amazing stuff.
That's incredible. Well, Christian, I think the last question I had for you. Well, first of all, one, is there anything else you want to share about him?
All I want to say is that I try not to get emotional.
Yeah, I understand.
I want to say that I'm sorry because
It's okay.
I never called him granddad, but I should have.
You think about one thing I'll say though, just one thing to think about is that's how you think about him. That's how you call him to yourself now, right? And it's not from
If
everything
he
you
were
told me. It's not just.
if he were here
Go
now,
ahead.
I'd call him that. I would. Sorry.
No, no, you're fine. But one thing I would say to think about is you clearly loved him, And it's love is you think about the way we're talking about with feeding people. Love isn't just words. Love is action. Love is being there. It's not just a word. It's not as simple as a word or a name.
Yeah. I don't ever recall us telling each other that we loved each other. I'm sure he did. I'm sure I did, but I certainly felt it. I hope he did, because I did love him a lot. And oh, I said I wouldn't get emotional with this.
I mean,
I
it's
you know
I know
I think
it's hard not to because
I think the problem is when he passed away. Um, I was so I was in my own life. I was at university. I had my own stuff going on at the
yeah,
time. So I was kind of I knew his condition, I knew where he was and stuff, but um, I was I was like when you're kind of too into your own things and you kind of neglect other things. Like I it hit me, and I remember just breaking down and. That funeral was really difficult. Um,
yeah.
I've been to a lot of funerals, but that one was really difficult. I think because he was a really great guy. He was really loved.
I know what you mean. I that situation like that the funeral part of it is when my own grandfather passed away last year. I remember going and the church was full. It's easily 100 to 200 people. And even still you had standing room and it was the hardest thing. It was it was this really weird swirl of emotions of just the saddest I could ever remember being, but also I was happy that I was there with my family and that they at least there was a support there. um Still hard though. It was
I
great to
think
hear.
the
It's great to
saddest.
hear the thing. Go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, it's it's a rough topic.
Yeah, I don't normally. It's funny. I spent much of my life not ever crying, and now I get older and like I'll cry at some dumb stuff. Like I'll watch a movie and I get emotional. I'll hear a song and I get emotional, and I suppose it's good in a way. Um, but uh,
I can't watch
the
Coco without
saddest thing I
crying,
think.
so I understand.
Oh no, come on, yeah, yeah, no. Anything with dogs or anything is just. I've
Oh,
I've put dogs to rest as well before, and that's even more devastating. Oh. I think the worst part about like when dogs die is that like a dog never tells you it loves you, but you know it did, and like dogs are very
yeah,
you just know they show it's like what you said earlier about action. That's what dogs are like. But I just wanted to say
yeah,
like with with my step grandfather, like past granddad passing away, um everything kind of changed after that. Because there was this house that we would all go to where he lived, and my grandma then decided to obviously move away from there, and I completely understood her reasoning, because that whole place, like, it was, you see the garden, you think of him, you see the dining room table, you think of him, like, you couldn't get away from it, you know. So I completely understand her decision, and she's moved on and moved her
Yeah.
life elsewhere, and I feel like like a chapter in life ended with him passing away. And I think that's the saddest part about it, is and that's life is about beginnings and ends, and that's why they say, you know, be in the moment. Make sure that you make the most of every moment, because you don't know how long you have, for yourself, for your family, for the times you have. um, I'm just so grateful it happened. um, and you know, I'll always be happy to share stories about him, because he was a wonderful human being, and I learned a lot from him.
I appreciate that
So,
you were willing to come on and talk about them. It's
no, I'm so sorry, that I
it's
lost
nice
it
to
a
be able
bit.
to remember people.
Absolutely. Um,
I
I know how it's going to sound, but like, obviously, I knew he meant a lot to me, but then I find myself crying, and it's just like, wow, I guess he meant a lot more to me than I realized. You know, I know how that sounds, but it's this is the first time I've really sat and spoken about him at length, I think. Um, so I think maybe that's what it is. Because obviously you share stories about him and stuff, inevitably with family, but this was the first time I actually sat down and thought about these things. I haven't thought about these things since they happened, you know. Um,
yeah.
and I mean, that's the hard part of life, isn't it? You wish we could all be here forever. We can't, and it's fleeting, and you have to just appreciate each other while we're here, and make the most of it, and live in tribute to them.
Yeah. I think that's important. You know, I decide that idea of take that best characteristic of that person you love and try to put that in the world as much as you can. You know, and what you said too about living in the moment and just appreciating it. And you also said something earlier about just don't be afraid to tell people you love them. If
Yeah,
they think it's weird, let them think it's weird. Let people know that they're loved.
tell them every day. Um, tell them all the time. I told my best friend the other day. His his father passed away.
Mm.
Yeah, this is the weird thing about life. It's I hadn't called him in a while. I called him and I asked how he was doing. And then he told me. I was just like grabbing groceries or something. Um,
Yeah.
and I was arranging to see him next, because it's been a while, it's sometime last year, and I wanted to go see him because he'd come see me. And he just told me that. I was just like, wow. And I knew his dad had not been in a great way for a long time, but he's such a great guy. He, even as he was saying it, he's able to just be very calm and collected about things, and I've learned a lot from him too. And he told me that, and he's been with his father, and he's like very closely over the last 5 or 6 years, and looking after him, taking care of him, being there with him. And at the end of that conversation, as we were planning when we'll next see each other and what we'll do, I just told him that I loved him. I've never told him that before. Um, yeah, we like hug each. I mean, the last time I saw him,
Yeah.
he got out of his car, and I hadn't seen him in like 4 or 5 years or however long it had been. And he went to shake my hand, and I just laughed and grabbed him. I was like, we don't shake hands, like we hug. We're family. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I reiterate what you said. Tell the people you love them that you love them. Tell them all the time. Um, make them feel your love.
And it's incredibly important. Like I said, love it's not just words, it's action, and I think that's the big make them feel it, make people feel it.
Yeah.
Chris, Christian, I just want to say thank you so much for being here, talking with me. I know this isn't an easy conversation, but I just appreciate you being willing to just share and honor someone's memory and talk with us.
Oh no, it's the pleasure's mine. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. Um, when I reached out, because for those who don't know, with podcasts and all that stuff, like you, occasionally you want to go and appear on other people's shows and advertise yourself, so to speak. But when
Yeah,
I got the email from you and I saw the information, I wasn't thinking anymore at all about myself or anything. I was just like, I'd like to appear on this show. Who could I honor? And then it came to me, my granddad. And then I just thought, okay, how can I do that? And I suppose it comes naturally. I mean, I love to talk to people. That's why I do my podcast. Same thing. By the way, you're very good at this.
yeah.
This is, please keep no, please keep doing it. You're very very good with it. Um,
Thank you.
it's the sort of thing where I don't think everything in life has to be about money or trying to get attention or trying to advertise things or gain something. Sometimes it is just good to just yeah, celebrate something, someone, something special, something important. I wanted to do this because he deserves to be celebrated, and I hope he knows wherever he is how much he's missed and how much we love him. And I hope that he's proud of us all. Because I mean, when I look at his kids and his whole family, I see him and I see his impact, and I only hope I can be half the man that he was.
I can. I'll tell you right now, as a father, just the idea that any good in me that there exists, if my daughter, if I can give some of it to her, and then she can give it to someone else, I promise you that that would mean more than anything in the world to him.
Yeah, that's the
And
stuff that
just
matters.
and you know,
When you think about it, that's the stuff that really matters in life. We get caught up in status. We get caught up in all these, like recently, just a bit off topic, but similar thing. Sometimes I get a bit down because I wish I was getting more listens on my podcast, or I wish my acting career would take off already, or I wish this, I wish that. But then I think about some of the messages I get sometimes from people that say, hey, thanks to your live streams or podcasts or whatever, like you got me through a dark time, and then I just sit there and I'm like, wow, I never thought that me doing stuff either idiotically on the internet for a laugh or even the more serious stuff I do, that would actually make someone feel something or inspire them or motivate them or make them care or even for a second. That's what's important in life, is how you make other people feel and how you treat people and what you give to people. If you learn something in life, share it with people, share
I
what
agree.
you've learned. um, that's the best gift you can give people, because people might not always listen, they might not always take it on board, but they'll hear you. And funnily enough, a lot of the time, the stuff that you hear, you don't hear it for the first time in the sense that maybe it doesn't connect or resonate with you, but it will resonate with you one day, and then it'll click. And that's the funny thing about life, and being open to hearing others out and hearing what they have to say. And it's one of the reasons why I do my podcast. I'll just quickly plug it. It's called the Christian Reeve Podcast. And when I first started it, I guess I kind of had the thought, like everyone else, like, I'm gonna start a podcast and I'm gonna do great interviews and la 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 la. and you do one, you do 10, you do 50, whatever. And I got better at it. I got better at having conversations, but I didn't really know why I was doing it. What's the point? What am I trying to achieve here? And then in the last 70 episodes, maybe less, maybe even the last 20, it clicked. I need to share conversations and stories that I have with these people with the world. And you can get something from it each time, something inspiring, motivating, loving, whatever. And I think your show is the same principle. It's the same thing. It's beautiful. And I wish you all the success in the world with it. I think it's a great concept, and it's a beautiful thing to enable people to honor the memories of people who are no longer with us in a nice way and for all time.
That's the hope. Christian, thank you for joining us. Thank you for playing. It's the Christian Reeve Podcast. Where else can we find you on social media?
Everywhere. On Instagram, Christian PK Reeve Official. On TikTok, Christian PK Reeve Official or Christian Reeve 2. If you just, I have a link tree. If you link tree. So it's linktr punk .ee/Christian Reeve, and you can find all of my.
I'll put it in the show notes too.
Thanks.
Wait, Christian, I appreciate you joining. This has been the Our Last Meal podcast, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to Our Last Meal. If you enjoyed this today, please take a moment to rate and review on whatever podcast streaming service that you use. You can also find us on Instagram and Twitter or at OurLastMealPod. Email ourlastmealpod@gmail.com or visit ourlastmeal.com. If you're interested in being on the show, you can reach out at any one of those channels. We'd love to talk with you. And until next time, take a moment to enjoy a meal with someone you care about.